Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Market Bites. Hope you are all doing well. We're into December, the final stretch. Incredible how quick this year has gone. To discuss the last 7 days, the latest moves in the markets, I'm joined by Neza and Bret Kenwell. Bret, first of all, how you doing, mate?
Doing good, doing good. It's a fun morning. It's a good week.
Good to have you with us. And Neza, yourself, how are you?
Yeah, also doing well. Thanks, Sam. How are you?
Yeah, good, good. How's the sleep going, or is it lack of sleep? What are we averaging at the moment? What's the moving average of Neja's sleep?
No, it's much better than last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I still need
Good.
lots of concealer, but it's going much better.
Yeah, I've got no excuse. I've got bags under my eyes, but I put that down to markets. But this week we can discuss commodities. I think it's quite interesting, and you speak to a lot of people, even that aren't necessarily involved in markets all the time. They're aware of what gold has done. We'll initially focus on silver, but certainly a lot of commodities at the moment have been brought to my attention and are dominating headlines, so we can discuss that, and then we can have a little pivot into the US dollar and Bitcoin, and even have a little random debate about should the Mag 7 be Mag 8 or not. And I encourage everyone listening at home or on your way to work or in the gym to get involved as well if you're watching on YouTube, and the link will be in the bio for the podcast once that is up and running. Neja, I'm going to come to you first on silver. As I mentioned just recently, it's been on an incredible run, really, really has. Albeit, playing catch up at the beginning of the year to
Yeah.
gold. But what have you sort of made of it all? Why has it stood out to you recently?
Yeah, you already mentioned that I think it was kind of in a shadow of gold. Everyone was talking about gold and we kind of forgot about silver. And like, even in the beginning of the year, it was kind of in the background and gold was stealing all the show, I would say. And yeah, when it woke up, just took off and now it's 100% higher than it was in the beginning of the year. And I checked before, this is its strongest run since 1970s. So it's a really strong run for silver. But yeah, I also don't think that this is just a random spike, because if you check this gold to silver ratio, silver was, according to that ratio, extremely undervalued compared to gold in the beginning of the year, especially because at that time the ratio went above 100. And yeah, I know this is just a number, but this ratio tells us how many ounces of silver you need to buy 1 ounce of gold. So yeah, and since it was above 100, that can indicate undervaluation. So once the sentiment flipped, it's just moved fast. And also there is another thing that I looked into, and this is a physical story. Mines have been stalling and demand at the same time keeps rising. Because we basically need silver for everything. It is used in solar panels, in electric vehicles, in AI components. Silver is everywhere you look at. So we've been running on supply deficit for a while now, and market has been basically relying on old inventories just to keep up. Besides that, also the strongest market for silver. I don't know if you guys would guess, but that's India. India uses the most silver. They have the highest silver consumption, and they unleashed a huge demand for silver, just also because gold is so expensive at the moment. And also retail investors just run into the trade, and silver is a pretty small market compared to gold. So when everything hits at once, prices just start moving very fast. And I think that all of those things are reasons behind this very explosive run for silver. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, or maybe on other metals. I know that Sam, you will have probably some technical point of view.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating looking at the charts and just seeing them. I mean, silver, especially when it sort of reached that multi-year high and just absolutely blew through it, and then reached the think it was the high from 2011 or something like that, and then went through that as well. And it's quite interesting. I actually think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but maybe quite some time ago. And it reminds me whenever I see silver has reached a new all-time high, or silver is up XYZ, or silver's had the best year since 1970. It reminds me of during the pandemic 2020, I had a friend who actually, funny enough, works not too far from where I am now in Canary Wharf. I'm not going to name him, but he was like, "Look, everyone, you've got to get long silver." We have a WhatsApp group, just all our mates, and like 3 or 4 of us work in finance. The others are like, do all different occupations from teachers to locations manager in film and TV. So like some people have half a clue, some don't, but it is the pandemic and the rise of the retail traders. So a load of people gave him money to get long silver in 2020, and he decided to use leverage, and the price stopped him out. And obviously since then, or if he just bought spot instead of using leverage, he would now be absolutely laughing. I think he managed to ride the trade a little bit more in the following years, but all my friends who gave him money lost out, and whenever they've got no money or just before payday, they always blame him for losing their money. But it's been an incredible run, and it really was lagging gold. It was, and it was quite interesting as well. You mentioned about the ratio, because there was a friend of mine who is actually he invested on eToro, but he was reading about that ratio and decided to trim his gold position to go long in silver, and it's obviously rewarded him very well, and it's incredible, to be honest. But I was looking at the charts earlier. Obviously gold is still very elevated, and albeit has consolidated recently, but it's quite interesting, and Bret, maybe you can talk about this in the moment. Recently, over the last sort of few days, with the dollar weakness that we've seen, it's sort of boosted higher a little bit. So a lot of commodities priced in dollar, that obviously helps. And copper's done incredibly well recently too. It's sort of, reached all-time highs. So you've got silver all-time high, gold not far from it. Copper is up there as well. I mean, one commodity in general that's really lagging at the moment is oil. And it does feel like a move could happen at the moment, purely from a technical point of view. When I look at oil, it's getting squeezed, currently below $60 WTI. But with the geopolitical situation between Russia and Ukraine, maybe that could improve soon, and that could obviously influence the price, whether positively or negatively if it doesn't improve, or positively, I guess, for oil prices if it doesn't improve. But that's something to keep an eye on. But Bret, just on the US dollar side of things, do you think some of these recent next leg higher for commodity pairs is down to that, or is there more than that meets the eye?
I think there's more to it that meets the eye, and I mean, obviously the dollar plays a huge role in commodity pricing, but asset pricing in general, I think. And when you look at these individual groups, they also have sort of main catalysts, but the dollar is a catalyst. It's an influence, sometimes negative, sometimes positive. This year, of course, has been a very poor year for the dollar, thus has been very good for things like gold or things like silver. But you look at, like, to Neza's point with silver, the industrial demand has been very strong for these metals. And when you look at something like stocks, again, a falling dollar is a positive on the basis of their prices, but the earnings have been the main driver. So it still is other components, I think, and I think you could even say other main components that are in play for these asset prices. But the dollar is an influence, and I think when you look across the board, like take something like gold, and you talk about it from a diversification standpoint, it might be easy to look at it now and say, oh yeah, gold's a great diversifier because of this, how well it's done this year. But gold's beaten the S&P 500 in 4 out of the last 7 years, and it's on pace to do it 5 out of the last 8. I would even be happy if I had gold and it only beat the S&P a third of the time, so to be doing it at such a healthy clip a majority of the time, really, I think that really does speak well to how good of a diversifier it can be.
Yeah, I mean, it's done incredible, isn't it? I think I saw a stat earlier. I'm not going to quote the exact time horizon because I think I'll probably get it wrong, but it was either like 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years, one of them, that over those periods, gold had outperformed the S&P 500, which is crazy when you think of it like that. But it's yeah, it's absolutely flown. Silver's done so well, and for those people, I guess, that have been buying silver over the last few years or gold over the last few years, really before this last leg higher is gone. I'd be fascinated, and let me know in the comments, everyone, like how you're managing this. Do you still have the whole position, or have you been de-risking as prices have continued to rise, or are you sitting here saying, you know what, these things are going to go higher again next year, and I'm happy to have larger positions. I mean, or are you playing it the other way and you're in gold miners? I mean, some gold miners have done incredible, haven't they? And they lagged a little bit behind that gold move. And I know there's obviously probably a lot of people out here listening to it that have been, long in copper related stocks or silver related stocks, which of course are now playing catch up and doing quite well. So fascinating area of the market, and bring on next year for them, I would say. What else should we discuss then? I mean, let's go Mag 7 into Mag 8, and I'm not quite sure whether they would just rename it that or they'd try come up with some sort of acronym for it, because obviously we've had the fangs, we've had all these kind of things. But Bret, I'll come to you. If they were to change it and it was just going to be called Magnificent-8, what company do you think would get the nod?
Yeah, Sam, I'll pull one. I'll pull one of your references. My unnamed friend and I were discussing this a few days ago, and initially my gut went to Broadcom. Stock's been phenomenal. Company's knocking on the door of $2 trillion valuation. Its products are great. The company management's great. So I think it, just for its size alone, deserves a spot in the discussion. The other thought I had, kind of after that, was Netflix. It's no stranger to the acronym world for stock pickers. It's become a staple in consumers' everyday lives. It doesn't seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon in terms of leaving the consumer ecosystem. So I think for me it would be one of those two, and I'd probably lean towards Broadcom if I was going to wager which one would actually get into such an elite group.
Yeah, and Neza, would you go Broadcom, or would you throw a rogue card and do something different?
Yeah, let me think. I would probably also go with Broadcom, but I was also thinking about one other company that has been quite a lot of hype around it, like past year. Maybe Palantir. I think that many of our listeners would go with it. But yeah, if I don't want to pick the same one as Brad did, so I would go with Broadcom because I think it's like more stable option. Palantir is much more volatile, but anyway, they have huge government and enterprise contracts. They have lots of story behind it. The platform looks slick, and I think that stock had a massive run. So it could be one of the companies that could join the group, I think.
Yeah, and I'm going to be boring as well and say that would probably be my pick too. The worry, I guess, for, let's just say they renamed it and it got the hype and it was Mag 8 and it was Palantir, not saying Michael Burry's going to be right, but he's like, this stock is going to, go down so much. And if he does prove to be right, that's not going to be ideal. But I was just looking, actually, as, Netflix would be a shout. Of course it would, it's been part of the fangs and stuff and all of this. Without, unless you've got the list of companies by market cap right in front of you both, where do you reckon it ranks, Netflix, at the moment in terms of companies worldwide? Obviously, your number ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is Nvidia, Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon. Where do you reckon Netflix is?
Maybe, I don't know. What are they about? They've got to be a little under 500 billion. So
No, sorry, rank.
Netflix, yeah.
Yeah, where does it rank? If you got, I'll give you, for example, 17. Nezha, higher or lower?
17. I would still go under 20. So
By the way, right? I probably would have said top 15. It's 22nd.
I was close.
Yeah, I mean, both of you really good guesses, but yeah, 22nd. I wouldn't have thought that. And also, I wonder if anyone's listening to this and would have said, Eli Lilly, would that be something to chuck in? Obviously, incredibly,
Yeah.
popular company, done incredibly well this year recently. Berkshire Hathaway has actually still been relatively resilient this year, despite obviously Warren Buffett moving away from things. And yes, interesting companies. Oracle's done
We were
okay
thinking
recently.
quite narrow with all of the AI picks, but maybe yeah, we should think a bit broader in also in other industries because you
Yeah,
mentioned LA Lilly and that's healthcare, but it's still $1 trillion company, right?
yeah, exactly,
The
exactly.
diversified Mag 8.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly that. But I mean, who knows whether they'll do it or not? But yeah, Broadcom. Do you know what? I reckon if we had a room full of people that half knew markets, I don't think they'd have said Broadcom would be, one of the biggest companies in the world. To be honest, sixth biggest company in the world. I don't think many people would say that. I actually watched a podcast with two people I really respect in markets, and one of them had no idea it was even top 10. But yeah, it's done incredibly well. Um, Last thing to discuss then, and Nezha, I know you're value investor, and you obviously keep an eye on the crypto world. But so Bret, I'll come to you on this one. But do you reckon correlation wise, crypto US are sort of gonna come back together? Because it seemed at some points that they were pretty correlated, whether one was leading the others up for debate. But maybe over the last sort of few weeks that diverged a little bit. But do you think we come back together into next year?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting discussion, and we've had that sort of like off-camera discussion over the last few quarters, really kind of between our group and
Mm.
whether we're going to see that correlation break this year. Just given that the dynamics for Bitcoin and crypto at large is really sort of shifting. You start to see sort of the institutional side getting more involved. We're getting so many more ETFs. Obviously, the regulatory hurdles have been coming down, but when we look back over the years, Bitcoin really does tend to be a fairly accurate leading indicator for something like the Nasdaq. Obviously, its moves are a bit more exacerbated, both up and down. But in terms of directionally, it actually tends to be kind of a bellwether for picking the sort of the next trend or the next direction. And um, we go back a little almost 2 months ago to that October 10th, where I think markets had a real bad day.
Yeah.
Nasdaq might have been down 3%, but Bitcoin and crypto were crushed. But equities really found their footing. We went through, S&P went through about a 5 or 6% pullback. Bitcoin went through its worst pullback in a couple of years now. So I think some of us are wondering, like, are we going to see kind of a downside follow through on the equity side, or is that correlation starting to break? I mean, obviously, being thinking about my equity portfolio, I'm hoping that correlation is not going to follow through, over this next couple of months. But I don't know. To be honest with you, I mean, that's kind of my unfortunate answer. Is I'm not sure if that
Yeah.
correlation is still in play, or if it's just sort of lost that the tightness of the correlation.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, Nezha, and it doesn't matter if the answer is not at all, but how much attention would you pay to what's going on in crypto in
You
terms of what may influence your investment decisions, or is it zero?
No, for me, it's always interesting to watch, especially big moves that's like we are experiencing right now. And we have our amazing Spanish analyst, Javi,
Yes.
who is covering all that's happening with crypto. So I always read through his analysis. But yeah, this time when I was just preparing for the podcast, I kind of looked into what is usually happening with Bitcoin in December. I know this is a pretty like short lifespan, so we don't have much history to analyze. But on average, Bitcoin tend to rise around like 9.7% in December. So history is on our side. So let's hope that there is no correlation with this drop, and we will see equities stable or rising even more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fingers crossed. It'd be great, wouldn't it? Little Santa rally across the board. But I was
Please.
reading something the other day just about how this person that was doing the analysis had a chart of Bitcoin and I think it was the S&P 500, and it really looked like Bitcoin was leading the way. And I was reading this chart they were doing, or looking at the chart a couple of weeks ago, and obviously Bitcoin has started to drop, when we had all these liquidations and, unleveraging of trades, and Bitcoin was down dropped through 100k, dropped through 90k, was sort of mid 80s. Obviously, it's had a good 24 hours or so now, but while the S&P was sort of still holding firm, and the question across the board was, if this continues, like we're saying, equities going to come under pressure. But you zoom out and look at the S&P 500, or you look at Nasdaq, or even just look last week how those markets did, and we're right near those highs, aren't we? So it just seems a very resilient market at the moment. And midterms next year, and Trump came out last week and said he's going to just keep this stock market at all-time highs, and it's going to be a great year, and all of this. So I think there's enough there to suggest that equities alone will be fine, not without their dips, of course. But it's quite interesting that correlation, I guess, if you look at very, very short term, broke down a little bit, because equities didn't really budge lower, nudge lower that much before recovering. But time will tell. Let us know in the chat, everyone, your view on that. But we'll wrap it there for today. Bret and Neza, as always, great to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Take care, everyone. See you next week.